Chapter 200. Yu Zijian. Her enchanting voice left Qian Rongji stunned for quite a while. She even smiled. Hello. However, she only watched from afar and did not approach her. According to their agreement, when Li Qingshan gave Qian Rongji the pills and techniques related to the sect to her, Qian Rongji finally lost her composure. There were 9 bottles of first-rate pills of spring breeze and rain, as well as 3 bottles of profound yin pills specially prepared for cultivators who cultivated profound yin true qi. As for the other pills like pills of passion and pills of calming, there was no need to mention them. However, what caught her attention the most was not these, but a book called The Method of Bewitching Heart. This was a technique specially used to bewitch people with the method of bewitching heart as its foundation. Only the upper echelon of the sect had the opportunity to learn it. Regular disciples could only learn some regular techniques of charm. The method of bewitching people was basically like adding wings to a tiger for someone like her who was skilled at controlling and manipulating people. Li Qingshan suddenly said, "Give me 2 bottles of pills of spring breeze and rain." Qian Rongji handed them over generously. When Li Qingshan wanted to give her 2 bottles of qi-amassing pills in exchange, she waved her hand and turned him down. She said fervently, "I can draw out the others too." Li Qingshan cut her off. "You better think about how you're going to stay out of this." The 2 grannies of the sect could not be compared to people like Zhao Liangqing. Their disappearance would definitely lead to a huge commotion in the sect, and they would become extremely careful. Moreover, he would have to be extremely careful in his actions. If he were to face 2 9th-layer aura refining cultivators, his chances of winning would only be 50-50. If he were to face the 10th-layer aura refining vice sect leader and the unpredictable main sect leader, it would be almost certain that he would die. Qian Rongji's smile froze. She had thought through this as well. Once the sect investigated the whereabouts of the 2 grannies, it would not be difficult for them to discover that she had come into contact with them. She needed to deal with them extremely carefully, so how could she take any more risks? Her plan seemed easy, but she was actually dancing on the edge of a blade. "Thank you for reminding me, but I'm still a woman after all. I'm blinded by some petty profits and become short-sighted. You don't need to thank me, I'm just doing this for myself." Li Qingshan casually threw the 2 bottles of qi-gathering pills into her hands, took little and with him, and disappeared into the woods. Qian Rongji stared at the gathering qi pill in her hand, reflecting on the gains and losses this time. She considered herself to be resourceful, ruthless, and decisive, but when it came to big matters, she showed her lack of tolerance, and could not compare to Li Qingshan. The distant mountains were covered with pure white snow. The sparkling snowflakes fell on the wine bowl and overflowed. A big hand picked up the bowl of wine and drained it in one gulp. Li Qingshan smacked his lips. The taste of the wine had faded and was now even colder. It had a different taste to it. There was no sign of millipede. It seemed that he couldn't wait any longer and had returned underground. Thinking of Millipede's invitation, he shook his head and sighed. What fun could there be underground? After drinking with Millipede so many times in the past few days, he already knew that this was an order from the demon commander. If he thought deeper, it was an order from the #1 demon king of the Green Province, the Dragon King of the Sea. If Millipede reverted to his original form and went to a human city, he would be a monster that could destroy a city. This arrangement was probably to maintain peace between humans and demons. Suddenly, a gust of wind assaulted him from the back of his head. Li Qingshan tilted his head slightly, and a snowball brushed past his cheek. He turned his head, only to see Little and covering her mouth and snickering. Li Qingshan said, "All right, don't regret it." Before he could finish speaking, another snowball flew over. He was about to tilt his head to dodge, but the snowball also changed direction and smashed into his face, sending snowflakes flying everywhere. A white prayer bead flew back into Little Anne's hand. Li Qingshan wiped away the snowflakes on his face and widened his eyes. "I'm angry." Little Anne stuck out her tongue and fled out of the cave. Looking back, just as expected, Li Qingshan had caught up. He bellowed out, "Great snowball technique." The drifting snowflakes all gathered in Li Qingshan's hand, condensing into a huge snowball several feet in diameter. He pushed it towards Little Anne. "Hiya! Hiya!" The carriage driver waved his whip and urged the horses on, pulling the carriage over the snow. He was dressed in the uniform of the proud sword manor. He was Yu Shuquang's trusted disciple, the gentle young man who was often sent to deliver things. His name was Yu Lian. The carriage turned around a forest and saw a manor surrounded by snowy mountains. The carriage stopped at the entrance, and Yu Lian said, "Master, we're here." A swordsman with a full beard alighted from the carriage. He held his chest high and raised his head in an extremely impressive manner. He was Yu Shuquang. His face was beaming and he wore red silk robes. Only when he arrived at the entrance did he bow slightly. He knocked on the door gently, rather nervously. "Is great hero Nyo here?" Suddenly he heard a strange sound. He pressed his ear against the door and listened carefully. The sound grew closer and closer. Rumble. Oh no! Yu Shuquang used his movement technique and flew up. A huge, white ball smashed through the vermilion door, brushing past his feet and rolling down the mountain. Yu Shuquang was still shaken. If he had been hit by that thing, he would have lost half his life. However, that thing seemed to be a snowball. However, he had never seen such a large, tough snowball before. Li Qingshan stood in the courtyard and saw Yu Shuquang from afar. He called out loudly, "Great hero Yu, why have you come?" Yu Shuquang went up in a hurry and bowed. He looked around and was stunned. There were traces of the huge snowball rolling past everywhere. A corridor had been destroyed, and a few of the woodshed in the east had collapsed. What are you doing?" "I'm having a snowball fight." Li Qingshan grabbed Little Anne by the collar. "I'm showing this girl power." Little Anne's seaweed-like, curly hair hung down. She said nothing obediently. She basically seemed rather timid. However, Li Qingshan knew that she was afraid of strangers the most. Once she was in front of outsiders, she would become very quiet. Yu Shuquang shivered. The tiger butcher really was violent. He had actually thrown such a huge snowball at such a cute child. If it struck, she would die. Yu Shuquang was afraid of persuading him otherwise. He even began to hesitate about his original plan. Li Qingshan asked, "What are you doing here?" Yu Shuquang gritted his teeth and fished out an invitation from his sleeve. He had invited Li Qingshan to attend a banquet in the Proud Sword Manor at noon the next day to celebrate Yu Zijian's breakthrough to the innate realm and becoming a Qi practitioner. Li Qingshan asked, "Has your daughter returned?" Yu Shuquang said, "Not yet. She'll probably be here tonight." "Then congratulations." Li Qingshan asked Little Anne, "Do you want to go?" Little Anne looked at Li Qingshan hesitantly, as if she was trying to guess what he was thinking. Li Qingshan said, "Then I want to go." It had been quite some time since he had taken her out for a walk. He said to Yu Shuquang, "All right, I'll go. However, I don't want to expose my identity, so arrange a private room for me." Yu Shuquang was overjoyed. He agreed in a hurry. At noon the next day, the light snow had just cleared up. However, not a single piece of snow had accumulated on the outdoor square of the Proud Sword Manor. The disciples of the manor had swept it clean. Lanterns and streamers decorated the entire place. Everyone was in high spirits. To the people of the Jianghu, the four great joys of life probably could not even compare to the joy of breaking through to the innate realm. Breaking through to the innate realm represented entering a brand new world, possessing unimaginable possibilities. Perhaps power and wealth were just fleeting, but longevity was what everyone yearned for. A high-level Qi practitioner could even live for over 200 years. Yu Zijian had become a Qi practitioner, so the status of the entire Proud Sword Manor would rise with her. Regular disciples like them could all benefit as well. And, although Yu Zijian was Yu Shuquang's beloved daughter, she did not possess the arrogance of a young miss at all. Not only was she kind to regular disciples, but she also liked to uphold justice and uphold justice. The people of Salt Mountain City all praised her. When a person like that received the blessings of the heavens, others would always feel happy for her from the bottom of their hearts. However, there were also many young disciples who secretly sighed in sorrow, cutting off the possibility of becoming the son-in-law of the Proud Sword Manor. Perhaps the story of a rich young lady marrying a poor boy could be repeated a few times in real life. However, Qi practitioners would never marry a regular person. Sect Master Lu, you've come. Please come in, please come in. Yu Shuquang personally stood at the entrance of the hall to receive the esteemed guest. As he faced his fellow members of the martial arts society, he was so complacent that he almost raised his head to the sky. Yu Zijian sat in the main seat in the hall with some discomfort, accepting everyone's congratulations. She saw the various renowned figures of the martial arts society and uncles greet and congratulate her. She found it extremely strange. As it turned out, becoming a Qi practitioner was actually such a good thing. When the banquet was about to begin, Yu Shuquang excused himself to everyone and took Yu Zijian to the back. "Father, where are we going?" Yu Shuquang said, "I'm taking you to see an esteemed guest. You have to be a little more polite when the time comes." Yu Zijian was rather confused. Earlier, when she wanted to be polite, Yu Shuquang would not even let her. He insisted on her maintaining her bearing as an innate master. Just who was it that could make her father treat her so seriously? In a dimly lit room with all the windows and doors shut, Yu Zijian saw an extraordinarily tall, sturdy figure. He wore a huge, conical bamboo hat on his head, and there was a bamboo basket beside him. An extremely sumptuous banquet was laid out before him. Yu Zijian could not sense the presence of a Qi practitioner or even a cultivator, but it did not diminish his dignified bearing at all. She became slightly more solemn. Yu Zijian said, "This is Great Hero Nyo Air." Yu Zijian's seriousness immediately collapsed. "Damn girl, don't laugh." Yu Shuquang barked. He was afraid that she would anger Li Qingshan. Before he could say anything, Yu Zijian said apologetically, "Great Hero Nyo, I'm not laughing at you. Please don't take offense." She also found it very inappropriate to laugh at someone else's name to their face, but the contrast earlier was just too great, so she could not help herself. Li Qingshan's impression of Yu Zijian was limited to the girl in violet beside Hua Qinglu. Now that he heard her speak, he took quite a liking to her. He studied her. Her hair was not adorned with pearls or jade. Her fine, black hair was tied into a thick bun, with 2 strands draping down her cheeks. It made her seem even more clear and beautiful. She was still dressed in bright violet clothes, with a deep violet sash around her waist, accentuating her unique, slender waist. Moreover, her bearing was natural and gentle, and her words were light and casual. Although it had not reached the level of love at first sight, she was still a cute young woman that moved his heart. Just looking at her made him feel refreshed. There was a saying that those who could hear the sound of a hairpin falling through a curtain, yet they did not think about it, were either foolish or intelligent. Fortunately, I'm between foolish and intelligent. Chapter 201. Your daughter really is a smart and polite woman. My trip here this time has been worth it. The last time Li Qingshan saw her, he had been surrounded by a group of people from the Jianghu. He was constantly worried about Grandma Shimen outside. Even when he spoke, his gaze was fixed on Hua Qinglu. Now that he saw Yu Zijian again, he was rather surprised. "You're too kind, you're too kind." Yu Shuquang smiled, but he was in thought inside. Don't tell me Li Qingshan is interested in my daughter? The first thought that crossed his mind was, absolutely not. How could he entrust his daughter to a murderous butcher? However, upon further thought, he felt that it might not be impossible if Li Qingshan really was interested. He had seen Li Qingshan's original appearance before. He knew he was only 16 or 17, the same age as Yu Zijian. He could be regarded as a dignified young man. He had only become like this to hide from powerful enemies. It had already been mentioned before that in the eyes of the experienced Jianghu, Li Qingshan's appearance was much more pleasing to the eye than the pale-faced scholar. Coupled with his startlingly powerful ability, he would just have to see what this girl was thinking. However, these thoughts of his were destined to be fruitless. That was because as Li Qingshan studied Yu Zijian studied Li Qingshan as well. The shadow from the bamboo had almost completely hid his dark face, only revealing a beardless chin. Although his yellow robes had been specially made to be several sizes larger than a regular person's, they were still unable to hide his bulging muscles. All young women yearned for love, But the ones they yearned for were graceful gentlemen, handsome gentlemen, not a super fierce man like him. Probably only a thirsty, resentful woman would be interested in someone like him. However, when the sharp gaze that emerged from the darkness swept past her, she could not help but shiver slightly. She lowered her head in a hurry. The gaze seemed to possess a dangerous and invasive nature, such that she dared not look directly at it. As he lowered his head, he saw that the ground was littered with pig and chicken bones. It was obvious that Hero Nyo's mouth had not been idle while he was in a daze. However, he had completely wronged Li Qingshan. The quality of the banquet Yu Shuquang had prepared far exceeded what he usually prepared. Whether it was roasted whole lamb, crystal pork knuckles, or stewed beef, they were all delicious. They were all his favorites as a carnivore. There was even a steamed bear paw, which was absolutely delicious. He spread his belly and ate a lot of food, but he didn't spit out the bones when he ate meat. Instead, like a wild beast, he chewed the bones into powder and ate them together. The bones on the ground were all leftovers from Little Anne's meal. She followed Li Qingshan, and her appetite for food had increased a lot. When she ate, she chewed slowly and looked elegant, but she was not much slower than Li Qingshan, who was wolfing down his food. However, she refused to eat bones. Although she refined white bones, she had no interest in the bones of cooked animals. Actually, the food she ate did not even reach her stomach. It was all refined with her true flames. She purely wanted to taste it. Yu Shuquang's respectful attitude made her directly treat Li Qingshan as a senior on the level of an uncle. It was impossible for her to develop any romantic feelings towards him. Zijian. Yu Shuquang tugged at Yu Zijian's sleeve. Yu Zijian returned to her senses and raised her head. "You're too kind, great hero Nyo." As she listened to Li Qingshan's heavy voice, her heart became even calmer. However, she felt that this great hero Nyo was slightly familiar, so she asked without any hesitation, "Have we met somewhere before?" Li Qingshan shook his head and asked with a smile, "Do you have 100 treasures pouch on you?" "I don't," Yu Zijin answered honestly. Originally, Hua Qinglu wanted to give her one, but she was afraid that she would never be able to return the favor, so she did not accept it. And she had heard that as long as she joined the 100 schools of thought, she could receive her own 100 treasures pouch. "This is the first 100 treasures pouch I've ever obtained. I'll give it to you as a congratulatory gift." Li Qingshan took out a rather damaged 100 treasures pouch. It was the one he had obtained from Qian Rongji's dead older brother. Although he found this girl to be quite nice, he did not actually have any delusions that he would give her an extremely precious gift to please her. However, the gift was too light, and it was unsuitable. It would be better if it was suitable. He just happened to have many 100 treasures pouches on him. All Qi practitioners could not lack them, but these 100 treasures pouches could not be stored together, so he could only fold them up and carry them on him. He had almost become a disciple of the beggar's gang, and he had an unprecedented number of over a dozen pouches. It was perfect for him to get rid of one this time. Yu Shuquang beamed. He had heard about 100 treasures pouches a long time ago. The 100 treasures pouch was even rarer than spiritual artifacts. Li Qingshan had been so generous right from the start, which made him feel like his hard work during this period had not been for nothing. "That's far too precious." Yu Zijian declined in a hurry. She glanced at Yu Shuquang and wondered what great hero Nyo's relationship with her father was. Why had she never heard of him before? Li Qingshan smiled. "I'm just afraid you'll find it old. If you don't like it, I have others. You can exchange them." "That's not what I meant." Yu Zijian waved her hand in a hurry. Yu Shuquang coughed gently. "Great hero Nyo wants you to accept it, so just accept it." Only then did Yu Zijian accept the old 100 treasures pouch happily. Her feelings were no different from Li Qingshan's in the past, but it was exactly because it was old that she was able to accept it calmly. Li Qingshan said, "There are still many people waiting up ahead. There's no need to waste time here. You should go." Yu Shuquang said, "We'll be taking our leave first. If there's anything you need, feel free to tell the servants." They had left. Li Qingshan took off his bamboo hat and carried Little and out of the bamboo basket, placing him on his lap. "Let's keep eating." After 3 rounds of wine and 5 different dishes, Yu Shuquang's face had already become bright red from drinking. He was currently competing with his good friend, the master of the elation school. At the entrance, a man with a pockmarked face raised his head and stared at the words, "Proud Sword Manor." He sneered hatefully. He seemed to be in his 40s, but he wore an extremely luxurious robe around his waist. A treasured blade hung from his waist. Its hilt was made of pure gold, embedded with a cat's eye gem. It was extremely grand. It was as if he was afraid that others would not know he was wealthy. Afterwards, he directly barged in. "For you can't enter without an invitation." Just when the disciples guarding the entrance wanted to stop him, the pockmarked man swung his sleeve. Before he could even touch the disciples, they were all sent flying through the entrance uncontrollably. An innate master. Most of the people who had come to attend the banquet were people of the Jianghu. When they saw this, they all cried out. Only innate masters could externalize their true qi. The pockmarked man stopped in front of the hall. Under the gazes of several hundred guests, he said sternly, "Yu Shuquang, you've invited everyone, so how could you forget to invite an old friend like me?" Yu Shuquang heard the disturbance outside and had already rushed out with his fellow martial artists. He gazed down from the 12th floor and gasped. The crippled madman. The expressions of his fellow martial artists beside him all changed. Beside the individual tables, another young man asked, "Who's the crippled madman? Why haven't I heard of him before?" The old man who was knowledgeable about the history of the Jianghu said softly, "His name is Ma Chaochuan. He's skilled in the 36 stances of the Mad Demon Blade style. He's extremely vicious when he fights, always wanting to drag his opponent down with him. He also has pockmarks on his face, so he's also known as the crippled madman." "Does he have some grievances with Great Hero Yu?" The Proud Sword Hall was originally called the Mad Blade Hall. In the past, the two of them had fought over the heart of a woman. They had staked their lives on the line. Ma Chaochuan had been defeated in a single move, and he had fled into the mountains and forests ever since. As a result, Yu Shuquang took the woman as his wife and used the Mad Blade Hall as his foundation to rapidly strengthen his organization. In the end, he unified Salt Mountain City. Never did he think that his old rival in love would actually reappear after so many years, and he was already an innate master. Yu Shuquang's expression changed for a while before changing into a smile. He clasped his hands. "Brother Ma, it's been many years. Have you been well?" Ma Chaochuan was taken aback at first before laughing aloud. "That doesn't sound like something the mad sword hero would say. Where's your arrogance? Where's it? Get her to come out and see me." Suddenly, he called out madly, "Senior brother, I've returned. I'm already an innate master." However, no one dared to laugh at his madness. His roar was filled with innate true qi, shaking up the hall. Everyone's ears rang as they became shocked. Yu Shuquang sighed. "It has already passed away many years ago." Ma Chaochuan was taken aback. His eyes reddened as he ground his teeth. She's actually already dead? You must have caused her death. She didn't like you at all. Oh right, she must have discovered that you poisoned me, right? What nonsense are you spouting? My father would never poison you." Yu Zijian stood in the crowd and watched on. When she heard that, she immediately refused to accept it. She parted the crowd and called out loudly, "Zia?" Ma Chaochuan was taken aback. At a closer glance, he discovered that her age did not seem right. "Who are you?" "I'm Yu Zijian. I'm my father's daughter." "And who are you? How dare you behave so atrociously in the Proud Sword Manor?" Ma Chaochuan came to a realization. "I'll expose this hypocrite before everyone right now. Back then, I was already a first-rate master, while your father was only at the peak of the second-rate. How could his wild sword defeat my mad blade? If your father hadn't poisoned me, would he have won?" "Zijian." Just when Yu Zijian wanted to retort, Yu Shuquang grabbed her. "That's right. I couldn't defeat you back then." "Father?" Yu Zijian looked at Yu Shuquang in disbelief. The surroundings were thrown into an uproar. Although Yu Shuquang was not as great as Yu Zijian imagined him to be, he was still a pillar of support for the orthodox path. He was renowned for his chivalry. Ma Chaochuan was taken aback at first. He never expected Yu Shuquang to admit it so readily. He laughed aloud. Everyone heard it. Girl, you heard it too. Just what kind of person is your father? But I wasn't the one who poisoned him. It was Z. What Yu Shuquang said next made everyone fall silent. My mother? Yu Zijian was stunned. She did not have a particularly deep impression of her mother who had passed away so early. She only remembered her as an extremely gentle, beautiful woman who often sighed. Yu Shuquang often said that she was as kind as her mother. Ma Chaochuan felt like a boulder had been thrown into the lake in his heart, kicking up huge waves. Impossible! You're just spouting nonsense. Junior sister has always been in love with me, so why would she harm me? Why would she harm me? Chapter 202. Yu Shuquang smiled bitterly. You should have known this a long time ago. I never had the opportunity to touch your food and drink. The holy hall. This was a doubt that had existed in Ma Chaochuan's heart for many years, but he never dared to look at it directly. He refused to believe that the extremely gentle woman who had grown up with him would do something so cruel to him. Now that he had suddenly received confirmation, his conviction for revenge that he had cultivated arduously for many years suddenly became so pitiful and laughable. He could not help but become furious as tears streamed down his face. He roared at the sky madly. Yu Zijian was originally extremely annoyed with him, but when she heard his howl like a despairing beast, she could not help but feel miserable. She felt great sympathy for him. He must have loved my mother very much. My mother was far too wrong. If she didn't like him, she could have just told him directly. Why did she have to poison him? Don't be sad. So many years have already passed. You'll definitely find a woman better than my mother. Ma Chaochuan stopped howling with that. He looked at Yu Zijian. Her beautiful face filled with sincere sympathy seemed to overlap with the face in his heart. He murmured, You really are like her. Brother Ma, so many years have passed. We're both grown up, so it's time for us to let go of these grievances. Today is a joyous day to celebrate Zijian becoming a Qi practitioner. She'll be taking the entrance exams for the 100 schools of thought next year. Why don't you sit down and have a drink? Yu Shuquang hinted. They were no longer regular members of the martial arts society that could be trampled on. Ma Chaochuan suddenly raised an eyebrow and revealed a twisted smile, which made his pockmarked face seem even uglier. I want to compete with you again. Afterwards, he pointed at Yu Zijian. She'll be the wager. With a crack, Li Qingshan broke the chopsticks in his hand. That's far too shameless. He had heard the disturbance outside before anyone else. Afterwards, he listened to the grievances of the Jianghu with interest as he ate. It really did go down well with his meal. He felt quite sympathetic towards this pockmarked brother. The feeling of being betrayed by someone he trusted was probably horrible. At the same time, he felt great disdain towards Zith. She had sacrificed her own senior brother Cho for a handsome man. That was far too unfair. The two of them could be regarded as prodigies among men, yet they had taken a liking to such a fickle woman. They really had low standards. Fortunately, Yu Zijian was not as heartless as her mother. However, when they heard Ma Chaochuan's final decision, they completely disagreed with him. This was no longer just revenge against Yu Shuquang. It was revenge against the woman called Zi, as well as the entire society. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you have a cultivation? You want? Even if you have cultivation, do whatever you want? Don't you even think about it? Yu Shuquang, who had remained calm the entire time, immediately reddened. He drew his sword and widened his eyes. Yu Zijian was the apple of his eye. If anyone touched a single hair on her, he would throw his life at them. Yuchen. Zijian was saint, or was to went to Z. T is the sword to T by to up Tien. Yu Chen after Shan to the he to Sanat. Ten good. Under everyone's watchful gazes, Ma Chaochuan repeated 3 times. He showed no fear at all. I've cultivated arduously on the Pheasant's Grace Mountain for all these years just for this day. Those who have nothing to do with this, piss off. If anyone gets in my way, you can just wait for the revenge of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain. Ah! With that, a series of cries rang out at the same time, rushing into Li Qingshan's ears. His expression was strange as well. The Pheasant's Grace Mountain? Was this the legendary Count of Pheasant's Grace Mountain? The others obviously did not share the same thoughts as Li Qingshan. No one here had been to the Pheasant's Grace Mountain before. They did not even know where it was. However, as long as they were first-rate experts, they would have heard of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain. The Green Vine Mountain, the Pheasant's Grace Mountain, and the Burial Mound Mountain were three powerful cultivation sections. They were renowned throughout the entire Clear River Prefecture, and they had become the sites of the three mountains. Not only were there Qi practitioners among them, but there were even Foundation establishment cultivators who had undergone the first heavenly tribulation guarding them. Their strength went without saying. As long as regular people could join any one of them, they would be like a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. Their statuses would be drastically different. No one dared to ignore Ma Chaochuan's threat. To the people of the Jianghu, Qi practitioners were existences higher up the food chain. Many of the people who were more on friendly terms with Yu Shuquang backed away silently. Only a few of his good friends remained by his side. They were hesitant as well. Yu Zijian's face was bright red. She was speechless from embarrassment and anger. Seeing this, she scolded, "You're bold enough to kill people recklessly. Aren't you afraid of the Hawkwolf Guard?" She had personally witnessed the might of a Hawkwolf Guard before, so she had an extremely deep impression of him. Ma Chaochuan laughed aloud. "The Hawkwolf Guard? Do they care about the lives of you people of the Jianghu?" Li Qingshan exhaled gently. He knew that Ma Chaochuan was right. He was a member of the Hawkwolf Guard, so he understood this very well. People of the Jianghu who practiced inner force were a special group that existed between regular people and cultivators. The Hawkwolf Guard's attitude towards them was extremely special. The Black Wind stronghold could massacre villages as a show of force and place their names on the blacklist. It had been many years since the Hawkwolf Guard paid any attention to them. However, if a cultivator did that, it would be considered a crime. The commander would directly assign them a mission to deal with it. If the entire clan of people of the Jianghu was destroyed, even if several hundred of them died, the Hawkwolf Guard would only investigate it casually at most. They would never treat it as a proper matter. When people of the Jianghu killed regular people, they would be treated as regular people and treated as such. However, when they were killed by Qi practitioners, they would be treated as Qi practitioners and ignored. Under Ma Chaochuan's vicious gaze, the master of the Elation sect gulped. "Brother Yu, look." Yu Shuquang clasped his hands around. Yu Shuquang, thank you all for your support today, but this is my personal grievance. It has nothing to do with you. Whoever interferes will be making an enemy of my proud sword manner and looking down on me." Everyone was touched and ashamed. Great hero Yu truly was chivalrous. He did not make things difficult for his friends. When they looked at Ma Chaochuan again, they found him to be even more despicable. The master of the Elation sect wanted to say something, but he backed off to one side in the end. Yu Shuquang's side immediately emptied out, only leaving Yu Zijian behind. She tugged at Yu Shuquang's sleeve, feeling both admiration and anxiety. "Father, she's a second-layer Qi practitioner. First-rate masters had no chance of victory against a second-layer Qi practitioner, and she had just ingested an innate pill recently. Although she was a first-layer Qi practitioner now, she might not even be a match for a first-rate master like Yu Shuquang in terms of battle prowess, much less Ma Chaochuan's opponent. Stop putting on an act. If you're a man, then come at me. I'll let you take 3 moves first." Ma Chaochuan was furious. This bastard was the best at using false pretenses to win people over. If it were not for his glib tongue, why would it? His heart ached. He looked at Yu Zijin again, and his gaze softened. His efforts over the past few years would not go to waste. He would definitely make it up to her. Yu Shuquang gently pushed Yu Zijin away. "Don't worry. You can go to the back." He winked at Yu Zijian before turning to Ma Chaochuan. Let's spar again. Let's see if your blade of madness is stronger or my sword of madness is stronger. Yu Zijian was taken aback. We're in the middle of a battle of life and death, yet father is telling me to go to the back? What does that mean? Suddenly, her eyes lit up. She hurried off to the back of the Proud Sword Hall without even looking back. Right now, the only person who could save her was great hero Nyo. The door to the room was pushed open loudly. Light shone into the pitch-black room, illuminating a broad back. Countless specks of dust could be vaguely seen. Li Qingshan wore a large, conical hat as he held up a bowl of alcohol, acting like he was drinking it. As if she had seen a life-saving straw, Yu Zijian said, "Uncle Nyo, please save my father." Li Qingshan almost spat out his alcohol. Why had he suddenly become her uncle, and it felt like he had been farming for 40 years. So-called men, even if they did not like a woman, they still hoped that she would fall in love with them, let alone the fact that he had a rather good impression of Yu Zijian. He could not help but feel slightly gloomy. However, an extremely gentle chuckle rang out from the bamboo basket beside him. Yu Zijian had seen quite a lot of the world with Yu Shuquang. She knew that only by getting closer to him could she ask for his help. She never thought that this form of address filled with respect would achieve the exact opposite effect. Before Yu Zijian could say anything, Li Qingshan had already said, "I heard everything that happened outside." "My father, Smith." Li Qingshan placed the bowl of alcohol on the table and said gloomily, "I'm not your whatever Uncle Nyo. Don't call me that." Yu Zijian felt wronged. She knew that great hero Nyo was afraid of offending the Pheasant's Grace Mountain, so he refused to help. However, Yu Shuquang's life was hanging by a thread. In order to save her father, she could no longer care about her dignity as a woman. She said loudly, "Then I'll call you Uncle Nyo, all right? I beg you." Li Qingshan's head paused. "Whatever you want." He kicked the bamboo basket. Little Anne's laughter was basically infuriating to him. Yu Zijian thought that he had agreed to it. She wiped away the tears from the corner of her eyes. "Thank you, Uncle Nyo. Let's go." She was tempted to grab his arm. Li Qingshan said, "You've heard what your father said. This is your family's matter. I can't interfere." Yu Zijian paled and collapsed on the ground. "Then what do we do?" Li Qingshan said, "But aren't you a qi practitioner too?" Yu Zijian raised her head. Her pretty face was like a tearful beauty. The blade and sword collided and sparks flew. There was also a splash of blood, which came from Yu Shuquang's shoulder. Ma Chaochuan let out a meaningless roar. He seemed almost deranged, but the treasured blade in his hand danced about like a storm. The chilling coldness reached several meters away. The spectating members of the martial arts society were all shocked, retreating into a large circle. Yu Shuquang also retreated step by step. He left behind a footprint in the marble with each step. He had launched the first 3 strikes, pushing his sword style and moves to the limit, forming a circle of blurs before him. Chapter 203. You'll never be able to match up to me in martial arts. Ma Chaochuan took a step forward and swung his right arm like a willow branch. The treasured blade followed, swinging horizontally and vertically. He swung it 13 times from 13 different angles. Every single strike was as swift as the wind, actually tearing through the air and kicking up a fierce gust of wind, producing a sharp whistle. The sacred hall under the influence of hatred, he pushed his blade style to the limit. He was as wild as the wind, filled with a terrifying bearing of wanting to drag his enemy down with him. Even if the spectators looked down on his actions, they did not dare to look down on his martial arts. On the other hand, Yu Shuquang did not possess any of the might of a wild sword at all. His clothes were tattered, and he struggled to move left and right. Every time the blade pierced through the sword, it would leave behind a wound on him before retreating. He was like a horseman riding through the borders of an enemy kingdom, burning, killing, and plundering. It was like he had entered a deserted land, yet he did not kill them. He wanted to humiliate them viciously. He retorted, "What else do you have apart from martial arts?" Ma Chaochuan paled. He had been stabbed where it hurt, He was ugly and his words were crude. Apart from his martial arts, he really had nothing else that he excelled in, which was why Yu Shuquang had stolen Ziya's heart. He wandered the Jianghu alone. Apart from his martial arts, he had nothing else. He bellowed out, "Die." He channeled his true qi, and the light from the blade pressed down like a mountain. The sword wanted to resist, but it was already riddled with wounds like Yu Shuquang. It immediately shattered when it came in contact with the mountain of blades. "Master! Brother Yu!" Countless calls rang out, but they were not as fast as the blade. No one could stop them. Yu Shuquang closed his eyes helplessly. I've come to see you." Outside the Proud Sword Manor, on a luxurious carriage pulled by 4 horses, 2 young men dressed in luxurious silk robes sat opposite each other. They were as arrogant as 2 roosters and were leisurely sipping tea. It was as if they did not know what was happening in the Proud Sword Manor. However, Ma Chaochuan had come to Salt Mountain City on these 2 carriages before disembarking and entering the Proud Sword Manor. The young man on the left said, "Junior brother Ma is just too slow. Why don't you deal with him quickly?" A lifelike tail feather of a rooster was embroidered on his chest. It was beautiful and glorious. It was the symbol of the Pheasant's Grace Mountain. Only formal disciples at the 3rd layer and above had the right to wear it. His cultivation level was shockingly at the 5th layer of qi refining. Years of accumulated resentment, it's understandable. On the other hand, the young man on the other side was indifferent. That was the indifference of a strong cultivator. 2 tail feathers were embroidered on his chest. That was the symbol of a core inner sect disciple who had surpassed the 6th layer of qi refining. You're in such a sorry state for a woman. With his aptitude, he can only reach the peak of the 2nd layer of the aura refining realm in this lifetime. A 2nd layer qi practitioner is enough. Once we take back Salt Mountain City, he can stay here and gather talents for the Pheasant's Grace Mountain, just in case the people of the Green Vine Mountain always get ahead of him. Senior brother is wise. Stop! Yu Zijian called out. Ma Chaochuan suddenly raised his head. A wave of fiery light surged towards him. With a cry, he spun his blade and slashed upwards. There was a boom, and flames exploded. Although Ma Chaochuan managed to avoid being incinerated, he was sent flying. His eyebrows were scorched. He cried out, "Scarlet Fire Talisman." Yu Zijian had already helped Yu Shuquang up. "Father, are you fine?" Yu Shuquang saw how she was alone. Is he unwilling to help? Yu Zijian shook her head. She fed the recovery pill Li Qingshan had given her to Yu Shuquang and commanded the disciples of the Proud Sword sect. Afterwards, she faced Ma Chaochuan. "I'll be your opponent." "Girl, do you think you can become my opponent just because you have a few talismans in your possession? Move aside. Let me kill your father, and then I'll take you to the wedding." As Ma Chaochuan said that, he began to laugh aloud. He found it extremely amusing. However, no one in the surroundings agreed with him. They all glared at him furiously. Originally, Yu Zijian was still rather fearful, but when she saw Yu Shuquang's miserable state, she became furious. "It's no wonder my mother doesn't like a baddie like you." Baddie was a swear word used by children. It would only make adults laugh. However, the second sentence made Ma Chaochuan cry out in anger. "How do you know she doesn't like me? She likes me the most. She's always called me senior brother, since young." As he said that, he almost burst into tears again. He alternated between sorrow and joy, anger and sorrow. He really did seem like a madman. Yu Zijian held a talisman. She was extremely reluctant to do this. Then she thought of what Uncle Nyo had said just now. Once you use this talisman, you'll definitely be able to kill him in a single stroke. You can't be soft-hearted. Ma Chaochuan raised his treasured blade and pointed it at Yu Zijian. "All right, I'll capture you first, and then I'll kill your father." Yu Zijian raised her right hand as she watched Ma Chaochuan charge over. She swung it forcefully from left to right, and a crescent-shaped, golden arc of light appeared. Ma Chaochuan's pupils constricted. Golden crescent slash. However, he had no intentions of retreating. Although the golden crescent slash was an extremely terrifying metal element technique that was swift and sharp, he was confident he could block a golden crescent slash from a low-grade talisman with his blade. However, the golden arc seemed to be much brighter than he had imagined it to be. Before he could think too much about it, the golden arc had completely vanished from his vision. Oh no, that's a mid-grade talisman. With that thought, there was a splatter of blood and intense pain. A mid-grade talisman was equivalent to a technique from a 6th-layer Qi practitioner. Although it lacked a lot of meticulous control and variations, it was definitely powerful enough. It was not something a measly 2nd-layer Qi practitioner could block. However, Li Qingshan had quite a few mid-grade talismans in his possession. Apart from supplementary talismans that could increase his speed and strength, offensive talismans basically had no use at all. No matter how strong or weak the enemy he was about to face, they would not be able to use talismans like this. However, a mid-grade talisman was a god artifact that could determine the outcome of a battle between weaker Qi practitioners. Ma Chaochuan suddenly fell to the ground, but he discovered that he was still conscious. Although the golden crescent slash had left behind a horrific wound on his shoulder, it was not fatal. In the final moment, Yu Zijian's hand moved slightly, preventing her from killing him on the spot. She panted slightly and said to Ma Chaochuan, "You've lost. I won't kill you. You can go." In the secret room, Li Qingshan shook his head slightly. He had told her not to show any mercy. Although he sympathized with this brother Ma slightly, his principles were that as long as he was identified as an enemy, he would not show any mercy. However, he did not blame her. A girl as gentle and kind-hearted as her was quite rare. Helping her was much more enjoyable than helping Chen Rongji at the very least. He shook his head and murmured, "I'll show mercy, but I'll show no mercy." "Uncle Niu," Little and said crisply with a giggle. Li Qingshan's expression seemed like he had been stabbed. He pinched her tender cheeks and pulled them apart. "If you keep calling me that, I'll rip your mouth apart." Little and said vaguely, "Of course." Ma Chaochuan's expression changed several times. He stood up with his blade. "No, I haven't lost. I won't lose again." "Don't move." Yu Zijian immediately had no idea what to do. She took out another golden crescent slash talisman. Uncle Niu's voice rang out in her head, "Bring an extra one, just in case." He actually seemed to see through her reluctance to kill him. However, Ma Chaochuan continued forward as if he was courting death. He had already lost once. He could not afford to lose again. "They have talismans, but don't we?" Suddenly, a person called out from outside. A streak of yellow light shot in from outside, sticking to Ma Chaochuan's back. It was actually another mid-grade talisman. A flash of light enveloped him from head to toe. Ma Chaochuan felt his mind rouse as endless power filled his body. True Qi constantly flowed out from his back. He turned around and said gratefully, "Seen your brother's song." Yu Shuquang's expression changed drastically. The Pheasant's Grace Mountain actually still had masters here. In the carriage, the young man with a chicken's plume said, "Senior brother, isn't it a little wasteful to use a mid-grade vitality talisman on him? He has the assistance of a master. She's just a little girl at the 1st layer of Qi practitioner, so where can she get 2 mid-grade talismans from? Let's just wait and see. We have to force that person out. Let's see just who's bold enough to oppose the Pheasant's Grace Mountain." Senior brother Song's face was cold. Li Qingshan frowned slightly. He had sensed the two presences outside right from the beginning, so he was not surprised by their actions. He said, "Girl, you can't show any mercy this time." His deep, hoarse voice immediately became louder and louder. Everyone only felt like a gust of wind had whistled past, immediately suppressing senior brother Song's presence outside. Yu Shuquang beamed with joy and completely relaxed. The tiger butcher was dangerous, but if he stood behind him and became his backer, he would feel extremely at ease. Everyone understood why Yu Shuquang had specially taken Yu Zijian to the back of the hall just now. The proud sword manor was actually hiding a master like that. Ma Chaochuan and Yu Zijian were like two puppets fighting. The ones who truly controlled the outcome of the battle were the people behind them. Ma Chaochuan roared out. Tremendous true qi pushed up his clothes, and his treasured blade lit up. It gave off a chilling coldness, forcing everyone to take a few steps back. Yu Zijian dared not tarry. With a wave of her hand, she cast down a golden arc of light before her. She dared not show any mercy this time. With a flash of the golden arc, it directly swung towards Ma Chaochuan's chest. With the assistance of the Vitality Talisman, not only had Ma Chaochuan's true qi increased drastically, but even his senses had sharpened. He grasped the trajectory of the golden arc of light, and his treasured blade spat out a streak of light as he swung down. With a great clang, Ma Chaochuan was sent flying. A great nick appeared on his blade, and the webbing between his thumb and forefinger had been ripped open, dripping with blood. However, there was only joy on his face. Before he had even landed on the ground, he exhaled true qi from his hand and pressed it against the ground. He shot back up, fusing with the blade as he swung towards Yu Zijian. His eyes were scarlet like he had lost his mind. Yu Zijian no longer had any more talismans to use. She was about to die to the blade. Crack, crack, crack. There was a series of sounds of wood and rock colliding. A figure rushed out of the hall with even greater speed than Ma Chaochuan. It arrived before the stairs, and with a kick, it directly collided with Ma Chaochuan. They both fell out of the air. Although Ma Chaochuan was protected by true qi, he still felt his back ache and blood sprayed from his mouth. However, the figure did not seem to feel any pain at all. It immediately flipped over and leapt to its feet. Its movements were swift and mechanical. Two sharp blades extended from its arms, stabbing towards Ma Chaochuan. Only then did everyone see that it was not a human, but a puppet. A gleam of light flashed through Yu Zijian's eyes. She felt like the puppet was rather familiar. Chapter 204. The puppet and Ma Chaochuan became entangled in battle. Ma Chaochuan's treasured blade landed on the puppet, but it only left behind a deep mark. There was the vague sound of metal colliding. The Mahist puppets were made from 1,000-year-old ironwood. They had been tempered through a special method, so they could not be compared to regular wood. Although he had the assistance of a vitality talisman, he was still forced into a retreat. "Senior brother, what do we do?" Senior brother Song's expression finally changed slightly. Even if he had a few more mid-grade talismans, it would be far too much of a waste. With a great roar, he leapt out of the carriage and took off from the door, rushing into the air. He flew over the spacious square like a great bird. He completely ignored Ma Chaochuan and the others below. He landed on the Proud Sword Hall and pushed off again, directly shooting towards the secret room where Li Qingshan resided. The people of the Jianghu in the square had never seen such a wondrous movement technique before. They all raised their heads and became dumbfounded. Yu Zijian cried out, "Sixth layer qi practitioner." During the time she spent in the Clear River Prefecture, she had learned a lot about the general knowledge of qi practitioners. She understood just how terrifying sixth-layer qi practitioners were, which immediately made her worry for Uncle Niu. She rushed towards the Proud Sword Hall. As he rapidly approached her, Senior Brother Song grabbed and pulled with his finger, and the thick wooden door shattered. He saw the tall, hooded figure inside with a single glance as if he had not sensed anything at all. He still had his back towards him. There was definitely no such a tall, burly man on the Three Mountains. Senior Brother Song immediately realized this. He slammed his palm against the man's back, and true qi surged out of his body. "Uncle Niu." Yu Zijian happened to make her way over. When she saw this, she paled and became filled with sorrow. "It's all my fault. Uncle Niu is going to be beaten to death by the bad guy now." Senior Brother Song's face had just lit up when it vanished, as not only did the burly man not fly away, but he basically did not budge at all. He continued to drink from his bowl of alcohol. The true qi he breathed out was like mud in the ocean. It failed to harm the burly man at all. This was the first time he had encountered something so strange. Who are you?" Li Qingshan suddenly looked back. There was a scarlet flash in the darkness under the hat. Senior Brother Song wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. His arm, which was almost twice as long as a normal person's, wrapped around his neck with a dustpan-like hand. He felt as if he was trapped by iron and had no chance of breaking free. As long as this hand exerted a little force, his neck would be broken and he would become a corpse. All Yu Zijian saw was Uncle Niu finally stand up. His tall figure was filled with unbelievable power. His head seemed like it was about to hit the ceiling. With a single step, the ground shook, and the dishes on the table flew into the air. "Call me Niu Wuxia." He took a step back and pulled back his arm. He roared, "Call me Niu Wuxia." He threw Martial Brother Song like a javelin thrower. With a whoosh, Senior Brother Song's figure disappeared. He even crashed into the eaves with a loud bang, causing broken tiles to fall to the ground. The martial artists in the square saw that the figure left even faster than the one who came. He drew a parabola and landed outside the door with a loud bang. His mouth was open without him realizing it. Obviously, Niu Wuxia inside was more ruthless. Senior Brother, are you fine?" Senior Brother Song was disorientated from the fall, but he was protected by true qi, so he was not injured. However, he was truly frightened. Just who was that huge man? Before him, he actually felt like he was unable to resist. If he wanted to kill him, he would be a dead man already. He was afraid that he would suddenly change his mind, so he said in a hurry, "Go, go." He actually ignored Ma Chaochuan and immediately boarded the carriage. He whipped off, rushing out of Salt Mountain City. Yu Zijian stared at Li Qingshan in a daze. Just now, the light from outside had landed on him, illuminating his pitch-black, unsophisticated face. His face was much younger than she had imagined it to be. He gave off a dignified air without being angry. His pursed lips made him seem extremely dignified. She was certain that she had never seen a face like that before, but the sense of familiarity did not vanish. Instead, it grew heavier. Could this be fate? A strange thought suddenly crossed her mind, which made her leap in fright. How was this possible? This fate was a little too great. "Thank you, Niu Wuxia." Li Qingshan sat back down on the bench and pushed down his bamboo hat. "There's no need to thank me. Go see your father." Yu Zijian turned around and returned to the hall. The entire square fell silent. Everyone gathered their gazes on her, as if they wanted to find out about this Niu Wuxia's secret from her. Ma Chaochuan's face was ashen. In his eyes, Senior Brother Song was a supreme existence on the entire Pheasant's Grace Mountain, yet he had actually been defeated in a single move by the person inside. He did not even dare to fight back. The vitality talisman on him had dimmed and lost its effect. The puppet soldier gripped his arm firmly, pressing him to the ground. Yu Shuquang said, "What else do you have to say?" Ma Chaochuan struggled as hard as he could. His face twisted viciously. "It's the same as last time. It's the same as last time. It's not that I'm weaker than you, but that you're despicable and deceitful. If you have the guts, then kill me. The Pheasant's Grace Mountain will definitely avenge me and slaughter your proud sword manor." Yu Shuquang suddenly laughed aloud, but it was not the complacent laughter of a victor. Instead, it was filled with bitterness and self-mockery. "I really don't understand. You're ugly and you're extreme. Apart from your martial arts being slightly better than mine, which aspect of me is inferior to you? Why does or just have to take a fancy to you?" Ma Chaochuan said, What did you say?" Li Qingshan was confused as well. Why would there be a woman who would poison the person she took a fancy to in the world? "That's because she knows that if I win, I won't kill you, but if you win, you'll definitely kill me. That's why she resorted to this. She once personally told me that she would marry a madman like you regardless of the outcome. I've already lost before the battle has even begun. I just refuse to accept this. I want to prove to her that I, Yu Shuquang, am fearless even if I have to die for her. However, she just can't bear to see me die for her. How can she let anyone die for her?" When Yu Shuquang reached there, he could not help but burst into tears. Ma Chaochuan was stunned. She had once tried so hard to persuade him not to fight Yu Shuquang, but he became more and more suspicious that she had fallen in love with someone else. He flew into a rage, determined to kill Yu Shuquang. Yu Shuquang continued, "After the match, you left without even leaving behind a single message. She was filled with regret. Although she had no choice but to marry me, she passed away in a few years. Ever since then, he grew his beard and swore never to marry again. He focused on raising Yu Zijian. Neither of the two young and stubborn men took a step back. All the woman could do was do what she could, but it was all for naught in the end. Ma Chaochuan came to a realization. The extremely gentle woman had never betrayed him. He had been blinded by his jealousy and suspicion. At that moment, he suddenly hoped that she had really fallen in love with someone else, obtained everything she wanted, and lived happily in this world. Chapter 205. Yu Shuquang gazed at the sobbing Ma Chaochuan and the tearful Yu Shuquang as he thought about the kind-hearted woman who had passed away long ago. The sacred church Yu Zijian seemed to understand the pain the three of them felt. She was distressed, but she had no idea what to say. None of them were bad people, so why did they end up like this? Was the will of the heavens playing tricks on them? Suddenly, she heard Niu Juxia's voice ring out. It's not a bad thing to be benevolent, but in life, how can you ask for perfection? Otherwise, you'll only harm yourself and others. You were soft-hearted today, almost causing your father to lose his life and humiliating yourself. If my cultivation was a little weaker, I would have been dragged into this as well. I hope you take this as a warning and don't repeat your mother's mistakes. Yu Zijian looked at the expressions of the people in the surroundings. Clearly, none of them had heard that. She looked at the sky in confusion. Then what should I do? Zijian, oh Zijian. Violet is the color of utmost veneration. The sword is the ruler of all weapons, the wise monarch. Violet Qi comes from the east, sweeping through everything and killing millions. Uniting the world, ushering in eternal peace and achieving great benevolence. Towards the end, Li Qingshan's voice gradually drifted away. Clearly, he had already traveled off into the distance. Yu Shuquang had originally named her Zijian in memory of her mother. The sword obviously represented the proud sword manner. Yu Zijian knew this too, but she never thought her name would have such a meaning. It was like she had been given a new name. She suddenly understood. She subconsciously touched the sword on her waist. For the first time, she felt a vague connection with the cold weapon. Her beautiful face gradually changed. She lost some of her gentleness, but she gained a sense of determination. Sometimes, people only needed an opportunity to mature and change. Allowing the seed to sprout, allowing the sword to emerge from its sheath. Right now, Li Qingshan would have never imagined what kind of fate would be buried in the philosophy of life that he had come up with carelessly, leading to a sudden change in the situation. When his words came true, when she swung her sword and killed millions, only seeking great benevolence in her heart, did he ever regret it? He would rather she return to this moment and place, to return to that gentle, naive girl. Or perhaps he would roar with laughter, praising her for killing well. Li Qingshan returned to the manor outside the city. For the next few days, he took pills and cultivated every day. His days suddenly became dull, but with little and accompanying him, he did not feel bored. It was just that when he drank, he always felt a little lonely without someone to drink with. The next day, Yu Shuquang visited him with Yu Zijian to thank him. He said that Ma Chaochuan had already returned to the Pheasant's Grace Mountain, and he would not be returning. In the end, Li Qingshan didn't open the door for them. He only said from inside, "Go." Acting like a hermit expert, he did a perfect job. Because there was nothing much to say when they saw each other. It was impossible for him to say, "Marry your daughter to me." From that day onwards, the banquets delivered every day were even more sumptuous than before. But when Li Qingshan picked up his wine cup, he would put it down again. After the joyous time of drinking together, he suddenly felt that drinking alone was unpalatable. Suddenly, his expression changed. He walked into the cave and saw a figure slowly walking out of the darkness. It was Millipede. He had a long body and a bald head. Li Qingshan laughed aloud. "You've finally come." Millipede saw Li Qingshan and grinned widely, smiling foolishly. Seeing him clearly, Li Qingshan was surprised. "What's wrong with you?" Many parts of Millipede's pink cloak were tattered, and there were many wounds on his face and body. Millipede sat down in front of the round table assembled from jars of alcohol. Afterwards, he fished out a glistening red fruit from his sleeve and shoved it into Li Qingshan's hand. The fruit was long and round. It seemed extremely plump, and it gave off an exotic fragrance that filled the entire cave. Li Qingshan fished out a messy pile of recovery pills from his 100 treasures pouch in a hurry. Millipede ate it and closed his eyes, collapsing on the ground. His snores rang out loudly. He had actually fallen asleep. During this process, the wounds on his body quickly healed. Even his pink cloak was being repaired bit by bit. This was one of his methods of self-recovery. Li Qingshan looked at the fruit in his hand and suddenly smiled wryly. Isn't this a sweet potato? It could also be called a sweet potato or a sweet potato. To put it more elegantly, it could even be called a sweet potato, but it was still a sweet potato. However, the spiritual qi it contained was 10 times better than the spiritual ginseng Li Qingshan had obtained in the past. It was a rare heavenly resource with a single glance. For a moment he and Little and looked at each other in dismay. Li Qingshan was filled with questions. Just where did this sweet potato come from? Just who was it that could injure him? However, he could only ask Millipede when he woke up. Fortunately, Millipede had fallen into a deep sleep, so he woke up very quickly. In less than 2 hours, he opened his eyes and looked at his shiny, pink cloak. He smiled at Li Qingshan. It's nice. Li Qingshan raised the sweet potato in his hand. What's going on? It's on me. Li Qingshan said, tell me what's going on first. It won't be too late for me to eat after that. Millipede gestured as he explained the situation. Although his words were unclear and his words were incoherent, Li Qingshan still roughly understood the whole story. However, Li Qingshan still managed to gain a rough understanding of the entire situation. As it turned out, the sweet potatoes came from underground, within Millipede's territory. They should have been under his control. However, over the years, another demon general had been constantly invading his territory and had finally gotten his hands on this red sweet potato root. As a result, every time the sweet potato ripened, the two demon generals would inevitably fight. Millipede was slightly stronger, but he was alone while the demon general had many subordinates. Every time he was outnumbered, Millipede would lose more often than he won. This time, he finally managed to snatch a sweet potato with great difficulty. Millipede was originally smiling foolishly and happy, but the more he spoke, the more upset he felt. Suddenly, he began to bawl. Only then did Li Qingshan learn that it was not peaceful underground, and demon generals had their own troubles too. He raised his hand and smacked Millipede's bald head. He yelled, "Stop crying, you good for nothing." "You hit me too," Millipede said with a sobbing tone. He curled his lips and cried even harder. Li Qingshan shouted, "He has subordinates, but you don't?" Millipede shook his head and sniffled. He looked over with teary eyes. Li Qingshan put his arm around Little Anne's shoulders. "We'll be your subordinates." Although he hated troubling his friends, he would not ignore them. "You guys," Little Anne pointed at the sweet potato in Li Qingshan's hand and smiled. "This one is more like you." Li Qingshan stood up. "Come, let's go down and take a look." Bringing all the food and wine, the three of them walked into the pitch-black underground. Li Qingshan had finally begun his demon path and entered a world where demons ruled. Under Millipede's lead, they advanced through the twisting and turning caverns and went downwards. 30 feet, 300 feet, until he could no longer estimate. Li Qingshan had never gone so deep underground before. However, the scene underground was different from what he had imagined. This place was not barren and barren. Instead, it was full of mysteries and contained treasures that Li Qingshan had never seen before. Chapter 206. Whoosh whoosh. The three of them crossed an underground river amidst the sound of water. Holy Church Li Qingshan revealed a surprised expression. He could feel the faint spiritual qi in the river water. He lowered his head and drank a mouthful. His demon qi had actually grown slightly. There were many unknown plants growing on both sides of the river filled with spiritual qi. The spiritual qi they contained clearly told Li Qingshan that these were rare spiritual herbs. Li Qingshan plucked one and placed it in his mouth. Millipede hurriedly said, "You can't eat it. It tastes terrible." But it was too late. An extremely bitter taste spread in Li Qingshan's mouth. His tongue was about to go numb. The spiritual qi contained in the spiritual grass clashed with the demon qi in his body, and most of it was lost. Li Qingshan hurriedly gulped down a mouthful of wine and rinsed his mouth. Millipede looked at Li Qingshan and chuckled. There were still traces of tears on his face, making him look even more foolish. When he smelled the fragrance of the wine, his eyes widened, revealing a look of longing. Li Qingshan passed the jar to Millipede, and he gulped it all down. He let out a drunken burp, as if he had forgotten all about his sorrows. Li Qingshan, however, had other thoughts. Most of the spiritual grass in this world could not be eaten directly, but there was no such thing as a useless spiritual grass. The inconspicuous spiritual grass growing by the river was very likely an ingredient needed to refine a certain type of pill. However, the demons lacked the skill to refine medicine, so they treated it as useless. But it was also because of this that these spiritual grass had been preserved and not harvested. As for humans, even powerful qi practitioners, they struggled to venture so deep underground. Although he did not run into a single demon along the way, Li Qingshan sensed 7 or 8 powerful auras at the very least. They sensed Millipede's arrival and avoided him from afar, afraid to approach him. If it had been a human, they would have immediately become prey for these ferocious predators. Moreover, Millipede was an overlord-level demon general, so he probably wouldn't show any mercy to the foreign species that had invaded his territory. Any qi practitioner would be instantly killed if he made a move. Of course, demons could not go above ground, and the underground was also a forbidden zone for humans. As Li Qingshan walked, he felt like he was dead. Suddenly, he raised his head, and a speck of blue light appeared in his vision. It was like a blue star in the night sky, quietly shining with light and forming a beautiful halo. The light was so weak, but in this absolute darkness, when it suddenly fell into the eyes, it actually gave off a beautiful and dazzling feeling. Only when he got closer did he discover that it was a small azure flower growing quietly in the crevice of a stone. Its butterfly-like petals would curl and unfurl from time to time, as if it was alive. Little and gently touched one of them. The petals immediately shrank and the light disappeared. Li Qingshan had never seen such a wonderful plant before. He felt that the spiritual energy contained in it was much richer than the spiritual herbs he had seen just now. As he moved forward, the pitch-black cave gradually widened. The number of azure flowers also gradually increased. 3 to 5 of them formed a cluster, looking exceptionally dazzling. The spiritual qi in the air was getting denser and denser. It had long surpassed the zombie cave. Millipede said, "We're almost there." There was no need for him to say it. Li Qingshan had already sensed it. A blue light shone from the front, illuminating the path in front of him. It was as if there was a blue moon buried underground, quietly waiting for him to unearth it. He suddenly saw the end of the long tunnel. Li Qingshan walked forward impatiently, and the light became even more dazzling. When he reached the entrance, he suddenly stopped and widened his eyes, shocked by the scene before him. In front of him was an open space the size of a football field. Thousands of flowers grew there, emitting blue light in the darkness, illuminating the entire cave. It was a sea of sparkling flowers, and there were many butterflies of blue light dancing on the surface of the sea. It was like a dream. This was a scene that could only be seen in a deep dream. Xiaoen's sleeve came into contact with an azure flower that had completely bloomed beside her. The blue flower suddenly broke free from its leaves and began to dance about. It turned into a beautiful butterfly of blue light, leaving behind a beautiful trail. These butterflies had been born from the spirit herb. They were the spirit of the spirit herb. Little and reached out and grabbed, but the blue butterfly turned into spiritual light and dissipated between her fingers. It reformed not far away and flew away. Little and immediately chased after it, wading through the sea of flowers that was about to drown her. Flower petals danced in the air, turning into countless blue butterflies that circled around her. Li Qingshan called out, "Little Anne." This was Millipede's home. It was his first time visiting, so he had to be polite. These spirit herbs might be extremely important to Millipede. Little and suddenly turned around. The blue light illuminated her entire body, making her look like a legendary spirit. Li Qingshan suddenly didn't know what to say next. He looked at Millipede, who was smiling foolishly beside him, and sighed softly. He smiled and said, "You're living in a pretty nice place." It wasn't just beautiful. The spiritual energy here was so thick that he had never seen it before. If he meditated and cultivated here, both his demon chi and true chi would grow rapidly. Millipede said, "What's not bad?" He pointed at the blue butterfly. "This can be eaten, but it's not delicious." Li Qingshan knocked his bald head. "What else is there in your head other than eating? Such a beautiful thing. Even if it was delicious, he probably couldn't eat it." Millipede rubbed his head and continued to smile foolishly. He didn't have any of the dignity of a demon general. When Li Qingshan agreed to go underground with him, he stopped smiling foolishly. He completely forgot about being bullied by other demon generals. "Don't smile. Be serious. No wonder you're bullied and can't eat sweet potatoes." Li Qingshan scolded. Since he was determined to help him reclaim his lost territory, they were no longer just drinking buddies. They were comrades who fought side by side. He still had to rely on Millipede's strength from now on. Seeing how foolish he was, he couldn't help but scold him. Millipede immediately pursed his lips and said sternly, "You guys stay. It's fine if you don't eat the sweet potatoes." It was rare that his thoughts were clear and he expressed himself clearly. Li Qingshan felt his chest heat up. He was very touched. How can my friend not have sweet potatoes to eat? Millipede wasn't smart, but he treated him with absolute sincerity. His cultivation level was high, but he wasn't arrogant. He was many times better than those arrogant, pretentious peddlers at the 6th or 7th level of Qi practitioner. He was the first friend he acknowledged from the bottom of his heart, and he definitely wouldn't disappoint his friend. Friend? Millipede pondered the word. Li Qingshan patted his shoulder and smiled. Good friend. Good friend. Millipede also patted Li Qingshan's shoulder. He seemed to understand something and laughed loudly. Friends were even better than sweet potatoes. After walking through the sea of flowers and startling countless butterflies, they arrived at the center of the open ground. There was a huge stone platform without any plants. It was 3 meters long, 6 meters wide, and 7 or 8 feet tall. Millipede lay down on it and stretched his limbs, forming the Chinese character. A relaxed expression appeared on his wooden face as he exhaled comfortably. He glanced at Li Qingshan and Little and then rolled to the side to make space. Li Qingshan didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. "You're inviting us to sleep?" Then he heard snoring. This guy had already fallen asleep. Li Qingshan and Little and looked at each other. Was this stone bed really that good to sleep on? Li Qingshan carried Little and to the stone platform and then tried to lie down on it. However, he sat up as if he had been struck by lightning. His face was full of shock. In that instant, he didn't feel as if he was lying on a hard rock, but on a turbulent sea of spiritual qi. He rubbed the surface of the stone platform with all his might and examined it closely. He saw a faint, resplendent light under the stone platform, as if the most beautiful gems in the world had been melted together. This wasn't the first time Li Qingshan had seen such a beautiful color. He took out a spirit stone hesitantly and compared it with the stone platform. Finally, he confirmed it. This is a spirit stone bed. This feeling was similar to how a normal person would feel when they saw a golden bed. Their first reaction was disbelief. However, he immediately understood why Millipede had chosen this place as his cave in the vast underground world. All demons' first instinct was no longer to eat and drink, but to search for places with spiritual qi so that they could absorb more of it. However, although the spirit stone bed was large, it couldn't withstand decades or even centuries of absorption by a demon general. A thought that even he didn't quite believe appeared in Li Qingshan's mind. He walked to the side of the bed and pushed away the dirt. His expression instantly became extremely strange. His guess was correct. This wasn't a spirit stone bed, but a spirit stone mine. This stone platform was just the tip of the iceberg of this mine. If a spirit stone bed could make cultivators' eyes red with envy, then a spirit stone mine could make 2 cultivators' sects go to war. That spirit stone mine alone was enough to cause 2 cultivation sects to wage war, causing noble cultivators to die like mortals. Humans die for wealth, and birds die for food. It was the same in the cultivation world. Spirit stone mines were crystals formed naturally from the spiritual chi of the world. They were usually formed on spirit veins. Most of the spirit stone veins on the surface were controlled by powerful forces and guarded by powerful cultivators. However, spirit stones weren't just equivalent goods. They were also consumables. Over millions of years, many had been excavated by humans. Some had even drained the goose that laid the golden eggs to catch the fish. Even spirit veins had been directly dug out. However, in the depths of the underground world where spirit veins were the most abundant, demons didn't have the habit of using spirit stones to trade. They wouldn't use spirit stones on formations, puppets, or artifacts either. These spirit stone mines that weren't excavated could be recycled, constantly absorbing the spiritual chi of the world and nurturing countless demons and spirit herbs. Li Qingshan thought, fortune truly favors fools. He'd thought that this fellow was poor, which was why he'd come to freeload off him. He hadn't expected him to sleep on a spirit stone mine every day. How extravagant! Millipede had come to freeload off him. Today, it was his turn to freeload off him. It would be a shameful waste if he didn't make use of such a holy land for cultivation. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, martial world, and tales of demons and gods.